abortion has ended far more black lives than the KKK ever will. The KKK doesn't stand a chance. And Margaret Sanger said, and this, anybody with an inkling of common sense can go and do their own research. It doesn't have to come from Lara Logan, and it doesn't have to come from Angela Stanton King. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who was a eugenist, said herself, the best way to get rid of a nigga is to kill him before he's born. Those were her exact words.
Welcome to Going Rogue with Lara Logan. My guest today is just a very special person, someone who I admire with everything in me. And we just had a big event. Her name is Angela Stanton King, and she is Auntie Angie, and she has Auntie Angie's house. Angela is doing God's work.
When I was 9 months pregnant, I didn't even have anything for my baby. I didn't have a car seat. I didn't have anything. And Auntie Angie had formula. She had clothes. She had everything. She had food. When I didn't have nowhere to go, she just came. She just rushed to the rescue.
And her name is Genesis, and she one of our first babies at Auntie Angie's house, born in Auntie Angie's house. Say hey,
I love what Auntie Angie is doing for the community, and just protecting our babies, protecting the mamas, and providing a safe space. We are here building out a community garden so that the families and the mothers have access to organic, healthy foods here in Albany. And this is just a powerful generational wealth building experience. And I'm so proud of my sister, Auntie Angie.
None of this would be possible without Robert F. Kennedy, without Nicole Shanahan and her generous donation to get us kicked off. But look, it is like a dream come true. We have people planting flowers. They're planting.
At this event last night for Angie's house, she was raising money for women who are pregnant and cannot afford to have their babies. And I learned a lot of things. One of them was that when you say pro-choice, one of those choices that every woman deserves to have is the choice to have her baby, even when she doesn't have the money for it, or a home, or any of those other things. And so I just want to welcome to the show one of the most important people I've ever met in my whole life, who I love with all my heart. I've never said that in an introduction. Angela Stanton King, welcome to Going Rogue.
I am so honored to be here. I'm so honored to sit across from you. It was an honor to honor you last night. You received the Voice for the Voiceless Award. That's exactly who you are. You are a voice for the voiceless. And although you say that I inspire you, you need to know that you inspire me. So it's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. And I know you're tired. We were up till all hours of the night. You have how many children, Angela?
Oh gosh, 94 God babies. I'm the old lady in the shoe.
Except that you are nice to the old lady in the shoe was mean.
Yeah, she was. When I think about the story, I love my babies though.
Lots of your babies were at the event.
Yes, they were.
They were so cute.
Oh my God, they were.
And I was so annoyed because I forgot, and I would have said this in my speech when I went up there, I forgot that my mother was going to abort me. And her and her mother, my grandmother, had a fight about it, and she left the house to go and have her abortion. And when she came back a few hours later, my grandmother said, well, because she was, an Irish battle axe off the boat from Ireland living in South Africa. And my mother started crying, and she said, I couldn't do it.
Oh, gosh.
So I would not be sitting here today.
It's so amazing. And when I think about it, your mom, her decision blessed the entire world. Look at what we have. We have Lara Logan, the voice for the voiceless. Look at the work that you've done, the things that you have exposed. If the enemy could have tricked your mother into getting rid of you, how many other people would he have gotten rid of because of you not being able to be here and spread awareness and expose some of the things that you have? And that's the trick of the enemy. I guess they figure if they can abort us and get rid of us before we even have a chance to fulfill our destiny, then the enemy is won. So I am so grateful, and energy never dies, it only transfers. And I know your mother and my mother are both sitting here. They are loving this. And I want to tell your mom how thankful I am that she chose life for you and gave me a friend till the end of time.
Till the end of time.
Yes.
I bet our mothers would get on well, actually. I bet
they would.
I wonder if they're chuckling right now watching this.
Sure.
They're like, oh, yeah, there they go.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so your personal story is just unbelievable. But before we go into that, I just want you to tell me what about Angie's house, what it really represents to you and what it does.
Oh, it represents hope. It's not about the argument of pro-choice or pro-life. We are so beyond that. We are on the solution side of things. We're a life resource for women that make the choice to keep the baby. And the work that we do is so rewarding because not only do we have the opportunity to change the life of the mother, but we save the life of the baby. So at our organization, we're changing lives, we're saving lives, and then we're also saving entire generations and bloodlines because those babies are going to grow up and have babies. And the whole entire purpose of Auntie Angie's house is to show that there is value in life.
You know, your event last night was beautiful, and I just was overwhelmed because it was expertly done. Everyone was super professional. You were phenomenal, and you had so many incredible people that you recognized and honored. And there was a lot in those speeches. I mean, your godmother, RFK King, who's just, is a legend in the history of the United States of America.
Yes.
When she stands, wow, it's like you feel the whole world stand, right?
Yes.
That's got to be a God thing. Yes. And when she sings and lifts her voice in praise to God.
Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Give God a hand clap, and you could be seated at...
There's such a joy and peace and love in that. I mean, it's like, it's not the same when I stand and sing.
Right.
You know what I mean? She has the power to lift people. Mm-hmm. And so this event it wasn't the fanciest event I've been to, you know, and I know that's because you're saving the money for the moms and the children.
Yes.
And I want people to know that because I want people to know when they hear your story and they know about what you're doing, that the money that you receive is going to the right things in the right ways. Not to say there's anything wrong. People can have fancy events, but I was very moved by that.
We're so grateful to be able to show the people that support us that we are good stewards. We literally started with nothing, and we take the littlest amount of what we have and we're able to make it grow. And I think that's why we are where we are now. And we have this support of so many legends, not only just Alvita, but yourself, General Flynn. I mean, it says something when people fly in from another state to come support you and your organization. And what I love about Auntie Angie's house is that you actually get to see the fruit of your labor. It's not some organization just asking for money. You're giving money, and you never see the outcome. You never see what happens. But we're creating people. We're saving people. And to see all of those babies on that stage last night.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful.
To hear the testimony from Zuri, who's 13 years old. I saved her 13 years ago. Just to hear her talk about how grateful she is to have a choice to live life, about how she's an artist and what she wants to be when she grows up.
Someone sent her to help me with all the things I was carrying, and she was so sweet.
Yes, and they are.
And then she just stood there and you know, there are lots of people coming to talk to you. And I saw her and I said, you know, Zuri, you okay? And she said, yes. And I said, do you need something? And she said, no, I'm just waiting in case you still need more help.
Mm-hmm. They're beautiful, lovely people that deserve the opportunity to be here. And one thing that my godmother told me is that every generation has to have a Lara Logan. Every generation has to have an Angela Stanton, a Martin Luther King, a Robert F. Kennedy, even a Trump, right? Because the battle between good and evil, it never stops.
Never stops.
Maybe it changes its direction, but it never stops. And these are souls, these are people that God has chosen to send here. And although I've come under a lot of attack for the work that I do, I wouldn't change it for the world, because I know that these babies are meant to be here. And I'm sure one day, I don't know if it's going to be 50 or 60 years from now, but somebody's going to knock on my door and say, Auntie Angie, you saved me, and I'm here to save you.
Wow.
So amazing.
Well, I was just impressed also by the quality of people around you. I mean, and what do I mean by quality of people? That sounds like so judgmental, and I don't mean it that way. It's just that, you know, you have that pastor that supports you, and he was so moving in his message.
Yes.
And then you have that the other guy, the finance guy.
Yes, Dr. Boyce Watkins.
Yes, Dr.
Bishop
Boyce
Hardin.
Watkins.
Yes.
And Bishop
Hardin. Bishop Dwayne Hardin. Yes.
I mean, these are people that move mountains.
Yes, they do. And the most rewarding thing for me about last night is when I looked out to the room, I didn't see just a group of people from one particular party. These were my friends. These were Americans. They represent every party. They represent every skin color. They represent every religion. And this is where we find unity. We find unity because we all want to help mothers and children. And I think for me, that's the most rewarding part of this, that I can bring so many people together from different backgrounds that have different perspectives and different beliefs to stand together and stand with me on this issue. It just tells me that we're doing the right thing, because God does want us to be united. And when we stop all of the bickering and the back and forth, what I've learned, and I learned this from working with RFK and his campaign, is that the majority of us do want the same things. We want our children to be safe. We want them to be happy.
Love.
You and I have had a conversation about why some women choose abortion. And that's why, hey, I'm not enemies with you if you're pro-choice and I'm pro-life. But the one thing you and I can agree on is that we both, regardless of what we think or what we believe, we want more choices, more life. We want to give these women an opportunity, because no child should be aborted because of poverty. No. And I think that's the rewarding part for me. It's the humanity that pops back up. It's the humanity that comes back.
That's what Boyce said, right?
Yes.
He said no child should be aborted because of what a woman doesn't have in her bank account.
That's right.
Can you imagine when you look at it like that, taking a life? That's like a real trade, life for money.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, and just because I've been there, and I've raised 5 children on my own, and just because I've got $0 in my bank account today doesn't mean I won't have 30,000 or 100,000 in my bank account tomorrow.
Well, generally
never know
it does.
how God works.
Generally, that's not how it works, Angela. You don't go from 0 to 100.
Well, sometimes I've seen God do some miraculous things, but just to base that one decision to say, you know, I'm going to terminate because this is how my life is today, when things change instantly.
Yes, that's very true. Why are so many young people struggling to have babies today? Birth rates in the US are at record lows, and that's partly because testosterone levels are dropping all the time. According to some studies, T levels are roughly half of what they were 50 years ago. And if we don't reverse this trend, we could be looking at population collapse. And it's why we partnered with Chalk. They're a Patriot-owned supplement company, and their mission is to save mankind from extinction. They have something called the Male Vitality Stack, and it's been shown in clinical trials to boost your free testosterone by 87% in just 21 days. That is not just a statistic. You will feel it. And ladies, you'll be pleased to know it's not just for men. The Female Vitality Stack addresses just about every complaint a woman can have. Stress, mood, hormones, energy, and focus. And it'll even help you keep up with your man. So go to chalk.com and use code LARA for 17.76% off your subscription. Cancel anytime. Or you can also call 50CHOQ3000 and tell them Lara sent you. Okay, let's talk about your 5 children.
Yes.
I met one of them last night. Your son's so sweet.
Yes, he is.
But you have had a rough life.
Yes. Jesus, yes.
Where were you born?
Whew. So I was born in Cheverly, Maryland. My mother is originally from here, Atlanta, Georgia. My father, Buffalo, New York. He was a truck driver and met my mom. They eloped and were on a ride from Atlanta to Buffalo when she went in labor. So they ended up making a pit stop in Prince George's County. Yes, which is where I was born. They stayed there 6 weeks and then they went to Buffalo. And I want to say we lived in Buffalo up until I was 15. I constantly came back and forth here as a child. And then we came to Atlanta and I've been here ever since.
And you're related to Martin Luther King.
Well, Alveda King, who's my godmom, is the niece of Martin Luther King Jr. And basically the family adopted me.
I see.
Yeah, when I was released from prison, I ended up on her doorstep. And she took me in like a little stray cat, and I've been there ever since.
What did you get into prison for?
I got into prison for title fraud and forgery. I was a young girl that had a bunch of children. I was never one that was very keen on abortion. I basically didn't have any education at the time. We were born into poverty, so a bunch of grandchildren living in one house at 306 Ormond Street, and everybody basically having to fend for themselves. So I got myself involved in some illegal activity, trying to make some quick money to take care of my children. And this story is known worldwide through my first book, Lies of a Real Housewife. But I ended up getting involved in a conspiracy plot. And I was convicted to 5 years to serve in prison. I found out that I was pregnant while I was incarcerated. And everyone was trying to get me to abort. The prison guards, the warden, people around me, and I was like, nobody saw a future for that baby or for her life. And even in my situation and not knowing what was going to happen next or where I was going to end up, I still saw value in her life. And I ended up...
And now this was your what?
This is the 5th child.
The 5th child.
This is the last baby.
Wow. And so you already know what it's like to have a baby.
Yeah. I got pregnant at the age of 14 with my first baby.
14 years old.
At 15. Yes, I was the child. I was a sexual abuse victim at the age of 5 at the hands of a family member. Which is one of the reasons why I adore you so much, your fight for children, because I was one of those children that didn't have anybody to fight for me. But because of that, I'm now fighting with you, and we're going to save all of these other children.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I do. I couldn't save myself, but I'm on to save others. And it was, because it was a family member, it was something, I guess kinship was more important than the actual trauma. And we've seen a lot of times where these things happen and they sweep it under the rug because they don't want to expose the family. They don't want to bring shame to the family.
Yeah.
We see it happening in the church. Now it's in our government because we've been so quiet about what's been happening in our homes and we've allowed it to happen. And
well, the Arabs say, when you let a snake into your garden, it finds its way into your house. And now, and when it's in your house, then it goes to every room.
Exactly. And I think that from that sexual abuse that I endured as a young child and not probably receiving the proper counseling or the treatment that I needed, as harsh as this may sound, once you're introduced to sex, that feeling doesn't just go away. So I was a very curious child. I ended up being involved in just being very promiscuous because I didn't understand. I didn't know the value of my body. I didn't know the value of my life. I mean, I told what happened and they were like, don't ever speak about it again. And it caused me a lot of pain because I wasn't the only child in that house. And for me, luckily, because it happened at my grandmother's house that I had to spend the summer at, but I was able to go back home. But I had cousins there
who
that I
were
left
living
behind.
with that. And who was the family member? You don't have to say their name, but
Yeah, I actually wrote a book and I freed myself from it. But it's my mother's nephew. It was an older cousin. So I was 5 years old and he was 17 at the time that it took place. And he called me and, he and I had a long conversation and he apologized and he said, I'm sorry for what I did to you. He said, but they did it to me. And I think that's when I realized, wait a minute, like we've got to break these generational curses.
The cycle.
You've got three type of sexual abuse victims. You have the people that are like me, who are going to grow up and we're going to become warriors and we're going to fight to protect all other children. Then you have the people who just push it to the back of their head. They're silent. They never speak about it. And then you have the people where it's learned behavior. Somebody did it to them, so they're doing it to other people.
And they don't know who they are outside of that anymore.
And they don't know who they are outside of that. So, my first baby, my dad wanted me to abort her. My mother was strongly against it. We kept her. She's a Howard Law School graduate. She's a corporate attorney. It's just, the story just goes on and on and on and on.
Didn't she just win the Harvard debating?
That's the youngest baby.
Oh,
that's the one that was born in the prison.
Oh,
yes, Imani Messiah Stanton, my baby that I gave birth to, chained to a bed in a prison with a sheriff watching. Not only did she win the Harvard International Debate Championship, but she got a full ride scholarship to every Ivy League school in the nation. And this will be her 4th year at MIT beginning in August. And it just goes to show that there is value in life. There is value in life. So amazing. And I got out of prison and
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Me too.
And I'm so sorry that happens. Is it still happening?
Well, President Trump made it illegal for them to chain women to the bed because of my story. And that's what I was going to say. Like,
come on.
I had no idea 20 years ago, that God would use my story to not only change the heart of people, but change the law of the land. Like, you couldn't have paid me $1 million to believe
Amazing.
that 20 years ago when I was giving birth to that baby chained to a bed, that one day God would use this story to change the law of the land and that this baby would get a full scholarship. And I think that's one of the reasons why I fight for these babies. Like, you don't know what God is doing.
No. It's not your design,
It's
or
not.
plan, or timing.
It's not.
There's the singer Lauren Daigle. She has this song, Trust in Me, and she says, when you don't move the mountains, I'm wanting you to move. When you won't part the waters, I'm wanting to walk through.
Yes.
I will trust in you.
Trust in me. And that was literally all I could do was trust in God. I had gotten, I'd given birth to my baby. 24 hours later, they'd taken her from me. They'd given her to my mother. Thankful for me, I had a family to get my baby, but there were other women that didn't have family.
What happened to
Their babies went to the States.
Which means they went to hell.
They basically went to hell, and you can't imagine being a mother in prison and not knowing where your children is, who has them, what's going on.
That's just torture.
It is torture in itself. And
seriously, is that the best we can do as a society? We can't figure something. Fraud, okay, sure, you're going to be punished, but we can't figure out a better way than that.
Here's the reality. We don't even take puppies from a dog for 6 weeks after a dog gives birth. To rip a human baby from the arms of its mother after 24 hours is inhumane. And even if we aren't thinking about the mother, Let's think about the trauma and the stress to this newborn child. You've snatched it out of the womb. The only thing this baby knows is the sound of his mother's voice, the heartbeat, the smell of her scent. It is the only sense of security that this newborn baby has. And everybody was talking about family separation at the border, but nobody considers the family separation that happens in the border.
In the prisons.
Anytime you're arrested, it could be for a simple traffic violation. If you have your kid in the car with you,
they take you away.
You're going to be separated from your child. We have so much family separation within the borders that we need to really start thinking about how we can redesign the entire thing. When someone goes to prison, you don't just send that person to prison, the whole family goes to prison. My mother had a massive heart attack when my daughter was 6 months old. I wasn't able to go to the funeral. They weren't doing any prison transport. I thought I was going to lose my mind. She went to my grandmother. 6 months after my mother passed away, my grandmother passed away. I'm still in prison. I lost my mother and my grandmother. I lost my entire bloodline. And then 6 months after losing my grandmother, I was released from prison with a $25 check and a bus ticket and told to go start my life over. With no support and nowhere to go. All I had were children.
And where was your father?
My father was in Buffalo, New York. He had remarried, and he had actually raised my first daughter, Aaliyah, the one that I got pregnant with when I was 14.
Wow.
So I think at this point, my dad probably was through with all of my foolishness. Sometimes when you have a wayward child, sometimes you wash your hands and you let them go. But he did such a great job with raising my first daughter. I think that he had left me to kind of learn lessons on my own, loving me from a distance, but it was okay because it all had become a part of my destiny. And I was very grateful for my father for taking care of my first daughter. And I knew that the rest were on me. And I didn't know how we were going to make it. And there were so many times that I wanted to give up. We lived in the shelter when we got out. There wasn't any ban the box back then, so I couldn't get Section 8. I couldn't get housing assistance because I was a convicted felon. Couldn't get approved for certain welfare programs. And we stayed in one shelter to the next. In Atlanta, there are 3 shelters for women and children. And there's a max out date. So you can imagine being a mother with 4 young children, because my oldest was in New York with my dad. Not only are you considered a liability because you're a young mother with all of these kids, also being a felon on top of that.
Wow.
So by the time I maxed out of the last and final shelter with nowhere to go, there was a lady there that day said, I know a place that you may be able to go to get help for you and your children. And I think at that point I was kind of at my wit's end. Like I already told God, like, this is it. Like, I don't want to live anymore. It was nothing else in me. I was so far down at the bottom of the tunnel, I couldn't see any light. I wanted to end my life and I wanted to take my children with me. I was that deep in the hole. I just didn't see a future for me. I didn't see a future for my children because they didn't have anybody. I just brought them in this world, but I didn't want to abort them. And I felt like the life that we lived, although at that time it wasn't worth anything, but we were alive and they kept me going. So I wanted to hold on to my children. And they are the sole reason that I am alive right now, because I couldn't give up because I knew they wouldn't have anybody. And so I remember packing our little 3 garbage bags of belongings. I had a baby on my hip. I had one on my back with my little carry-on. I had one holding the stroller, another one in my hand, and I'm pushing our little belongings in the stroller. And I'm telling God, if I go in here and these people don't help me, this is it. Like, I was going to take my life and I was going to take my children with me. Like, that was it. And so we got off the bus and I'm walking into this little home sitting on this hill. It's not much, not a big facility. And I walk in there and there's this little lady sitting behind the desk. And I go and I sit at the desk and I look her dead in her eyes and I tell her, I said, lady, if you don't help me today, I am going to die. And she looked at me and smiled and she said, now why would you say a thing like that? And I couldn't understand why my life is falling apart. Lady, I just told you that I'm getting ready to end my life. You sitting up here smiling. And it just so happened that the lady sitting behind the desk that day was Alveda King, the niece of Martin Luther King Jr. And not only did she hire me on the spot and give me a job, she helped me and my children get our first apartment. And ever since then, I never looked back. For 20 years, I work with the King family on community restoration. They taught me how to start and operate nonprofit organizations. So before I started my own, that's kind of what we did in Georgia. We went around and we helped people create nonprofit organizations to help our community. And Alveda was very, very instrumental in saving my life and changing my life, because she came in when I had absolutely nothing. And I asked her, like, how could I ever repay you for what you've done to me? Like, I'm like, okay, this is it. I am in debt. I owe my soul to this lady. And she's like, I just want you to be to someone else who I've been to you. And over those 20 years, not only did she restore what me and my children had lost, as far as being and sitting in and being a grandmother to my children who needed that, being that motherly figure to me, because losing my mother in prison, I still have not dealt with that trauma, because it is just, it's too much. Like, some places I can't go. I feel like I'll never come back from. But I needed someone. I needed a motherly figure, and that's who she was. And 20 years we worked to rebuild my life. And she had a prior relationship with Trump. I didn't know this. And then next thing I know, out of nowhere, here comes Trump. He's running for office, right? And so me, because I'm so tied to the community, all of a sudden he's a racist. I don't know what's going on. And mom's like, I need you to go in and talk to Trump and tell him your story. She's like, he's working on criminal justice reform. I need you to go in and talk to him and tell him your story. And I'm like, I'm not going in and talking to him. I'm thinking this guy is just this head of the Ku Klux Klan. He's going to hang me because this is what the media is saying. But then I had to really think about it. And I put myself back in that cage. And I remembered how hard it was for me. Not only losing my mother, but being away from my children. And I realized that this opportunity to go speak to Trump was bigger than me. It was an opportunity to help other people and all the mothers that were left behind.
Yeah.
Because although I had the opportunity to get out and be reunited with my children and get my children back, there are mothers that lost their children, that'll never see their children again. And I went in and I set all of my fears and my emotions to the side. And I'm looking at this man who has the power to not only change my life, but to change the lives of so many others. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm trusting you once again. And I tell Trump my story. And this is probably the first time in my life I ever saw a white man have a tear well up in his eye because of my story. And he was so moved that not only did he change the law and make it illegal for them to chain women to the bed during childbirth, but he also had given me a full and unconditional pardon. And it was in that moment that I was free. I wasn't free when I walked outside of prison, because even after leaving prison, I was still in prison, but it was by bars and chains that you couldn't see with the human eye. I couldn't get a job because I was a convicted felon. I couldn't live in certain places because I was a convicted felon. It's like you go to prison, you serve your time, you come out, you're a model citizen, you've gotten your life back together, but they're still going to hold you accountable for something that you fully paid your debt for. So here it was,
well, they're
15
still
years
punishing
later.
you.
continually.
It's not accountability at that point. It's punishment.
It's punishment. And what happens is we don't understand that when we are continuing to punish these people, that now the children are being punished. Because now, even with my daughter, like, she was so talented, the one that won the Harvard International Debate Championship. But there were times where I couldn't afford to live in the best places. And by me not being able to afford to live in the best places, that meant that my daughter went to low quality, underperforming schools.
Wow.
And there was time I had to take that chance again. And I lied on that paperwork to get my daughter in the best schools because I knew that not only was she worth it, right? But I knew that she was one of the best. That was a risk that I was willing to take. And she ended up walking away with the best and the most quality education because her mother had to take a chance at breaking the law. And there are just some things that we shouldn't have to break the law in order to achieve.
No, there's an attorney, Brett Tolman, who's gotten a lot of people pardoned, a number of people pardoned. And he said to me once, he said, show me the person, I can show you the crime. He said, we've made so many laws that there's everyone out there breaks the law every day.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And I think another reason why I went in is because during those 4 years, everybody was just crying about the family separation at the border. And I just kept remembering that day. I kept remembering that day that they took my baby. Oh. Because even though I committed a crime, I love my children. Okay, I love them enough to give them life. Okay, and I remember when they took my baby from me, it felt like I had given birth to a stillborn and took my baby. They sent me back to prison 24 hours later. The prison's overcrowded. They give me a mat to get up and down off of the floor. There's no privacy. I'm hemorrhaging. I'm hearing my baby crying. My womb is empty. My breast is oozing milk. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is work. Death probably would have been better. And I said, there is no way the entire country of America is sitting up here crying to reunite families at the border, but you are doing nothing to reunite these families in the border. And I said, I've got to do something. And I did something. I went in and we changed the law. And not only did we change the law, I've worked very closely with President Trump and his administration to bring others home. We're still doing that now. So,
what do you mean bring others home?
Work with other people to get pardons, to get released, people that are deserving of second chances.
Like Alice Johnson.
Oh gosh, I love her. The pardons are,
yeah.
Nobody is more deserving of that than her. But it's just so rewarding to see people waking up, people understanding that we don't change the laws at the border to accommodate people coming across the border. When we change, like, the laws that we have are laws that every American citizen has to abide by.
Yes.
So if you come here, right, you got to abide by the same laws that we abide by. So why just put laws and a system in place at the border that reunites those families, but we don't have laws and system in place that reunite our families?
I know. Obviously they frame the border in terms of race all the time. And I went down, I spent a year just covering the border. I've covered a lot since, but I went down and talked to people in South Texas on the ranches. And there was one lady, a young woman, and she said to me, her husband's in the Marine Corps and he was a reservist at that point, and he would leave to go and do his reserve duty. They were 2 hours from the nearest police station, sheriff's office. So if she picked up the phone and called, it was a minimum of 2 hours before help would come. And when her husband would be gone for months, and she had 4 babies, all below the age of 5. One was a tiny baby. And she said, when I open my door in the mornings and I come outside, she said, to take my oldest to kindergarten, she said, I don't know who's going to be standing there. And sometimes it's it's 5 men. Sometimes it's more than that. And she said, I don't know who any of them are. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to hurt me? Are they not going to hurt me? And she said, we're not asking for a lot. We're just asking that the United States government does not allow people into the country without knowing who they are.
That's it.
She said, I want to know they're held to the same standard as everyone in this country. That if something happens to me or my children, they'll be able to find that person and hold them accountable the way they would an American.
And that is the common sense part of it all. There is not, we can't even leave the hospitals after giving birth to our babies without having a birth certificate or a social security number put. Like every American citizen is tracked from birth. They know exactly who we are. And to think that we are to allow other people to just come into our country and not be subjected to the same laws that we are subjected to. And the majority of the people that are hollering and screaming for open borders live in gated communities.
Yeah.
If you go visit any one of those congressmen that make all of this tons of money to say that they represent us, they are living in a gated or a secured community. None of them have opened their doors to allow illegal immigrants to come in. It's all about propaganda and not about the American citizen. That's one of the things I say all the time. Like, even when it comes to our community, you guys are so welcoming when it comes to issues of abortion. But you have to ask yourselves, why are there no abortion clinics at the border? Right? It seems to me it would be a great idea, right? If it's freedom and choice and liberation in abortion, and it's such a wonderful gift to the Black community for women who are in poverty and struggling, it seems to me that there should be an abortion clinic at every single opening in the border. It will help with the border control crisis. But see, when I say it like that, then people look at it different. They say, oh my God, Angela, what do you mean? Are you a racist? Do you want to abort immigrants? You want to abort Mexican people or Latino people? But when you talk about abortion in the Black community, it's a gift. Right? It's a gift to the Black community, but it's a curse to other communities. And it's just time.
It's time. It's time for us to address this issue. I want to tell you one thing before we talk about abortion in the Black community, because it's something really important. And I want to dispense with all the noise and get down to the hard facts of this. And let's address this. Let's deal with it, and let's be honest about it. But I will tell you that there's a woman, Tara Rodas, who works in the Inspector General's office, and one of the things that she told me about, she volunteered down at the border, and she said they were taking girls and giving them abortions, girls who were raped along that journey. And the thing is, they were covering it up.
Well, when you have an abortion, if you are raped, you get rid of all the evidence. A baby and DNA is direct proof evidence of who the rapist is.
Yes.
And again, I said propaganda. Wow. They use rape as the excuse, right, for abortion. And we see all these high numbers in abortion, but we don't see the high numbers in rape convictions. If we are aborting children because of rape, we need to abort the rapist too. If we can kill the baby, God forgive me, we should be able to kill the rapist so he doesn't keep raping and making more babies that we have to kill because this guy is a serial rapist. Abort the rapist.
Wow. You know, it's interesting that you say that, because right now we live in a time where there's all these people, they're renaming pedophiles minor attracted persons and saying you have to have compassion for the pedophile because not every pedophile is a criminal. This is actual testimony given by academic professionals on the stand. This is not this is not fantasy or conspiracy. This is something very real that is happening right now. There are, you talk about, there are actual victims who are being targeted by other NGOs, not your kind of non-government organization, but organizations that are set up to target the victims and their families because they want justice.
Listen, it is so dark and so diabolical the way that these people have ushered in abortion, and especially how it pertains to our community. Abortion made it where the KKK was irrelevant. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more when you're ready to get into it.
Let's talk about it now. So,
abortion made the KKK irrelevant. Like, why would I, if I'm a white supremacist, like they call my friends, my white Republican friends who I love, who have helped me with Auntie Angie's house, and I'll stand for them any day, because you can't say Black Lives Matter and call them a racist, and you're standing in the front line at the abortion clinic to abort the Black life that you created. Nothing is more racist, right, than you. So the KKK has completely done away, right? Well, the abortion is done away with the KKK because, like I was saying, if I'm a white supremacist and I want to get rid of Black people, right, what's the best way to do it?
Get them to get rid of their own.
Get rid of it yourself. I don't have to worry about going to jail. Yeah. Right? You can put the blame on me all you want, but you're the one that pulled the trigger, right? It's your choice.
It's your choice.
Right. We're going to give you a choice. So now we don't have to worry about anybody knocking on our doors in white hoods. Abortion has ended far more Black lives than the KKK ever will. The KKK doesn't stand a chance. And Margaret Sanger said, and this, anybody with an inkling of common sense can go and do their own research. It doesn't have to come from Lara Logan, and it doesn't have to come from Angela Stanton King. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who was a eugenist, said herself, the best way to get rid of a nigga is to kill him before he's born. Those were her exact words, right? And since the passing of Roe v. Wade, over 20 million Black lives has been ended. And what they did was, through the Negro Project and Title X funding, they went around convincing a bunch of Black preachers, right? Because they knew that they had the congregation, they had the community, that birth control, right, was better for us, right? And all of it was a depopulation tactic, right? You don't see those big families like we saw years ago. Like when I was coming up, my grandmother had 10 kids. A woman having 10 kids this day is somewhat unheard of. We'd be lucky if they even get one with the Black maternal health crisis that we're currently dealing with. And so what they did was they went around and they encouraged preachers to preach this freedom and liberation to their congregations. You want to be free? You want to be successful? Control the birth rate of your children. So Planned Parenthood has always been Parenthood Planned. See, back then they would call us colored women when they target us. Now they say women of color. See, it's always turned around. It's always backwards. Just how the enemy works. He takes anything that God has and he flips it upside down. Just like with the rainbow, they take the cross, they turn the cross upside down. So then you got birth control. Birth control is nothing more than controlled birth. So when they began to control the birth rate of Black Americans, and we can see now since the passing of Roe v. Wade, which was in 1973, our population is still at 13%.
Yes.
We have remained stagnant. We have not grown, and we are constantly crying about being a minority. How in the world are you ever going to become the majority if you are proudly advocating, voting, fighting for abortion? You don't have to do the work. White supremacists don't have to figure out a way to get rid of you. You won't even give your child a chance. Abortion was one of the smartest and most strategic things that white supremacy ever invented. Make Black women feel free and liberated with a choice to terminate their own children. It's diabolical.
It's diabolical. It's truly evil.
Diabolical. And they made it off of the basis of rape and incest. That's every time we talk about abortion, what do we hear about? What if a woman is raped? What if it's incest? That's the first thing that they bring up, because even with Roe v. Wade, it was legalized off of a lie. Norma said that she was raped by she said that she was raped by 4 black men, and then admitted on her deathbed she was never raped and she never even had an abortion.
She made it all up.
So based off of a lie, 20 million black lives have been aborted, and we constantly see, right, them using rape as an excuse, but all we see is the numbers from abortion. We don't see the numbers from the convicted rapists. And something has to change.
So what are the numbers of convicted rapists? Do you know?
I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but they aren't as high as abortion.
No. And abortion, how many, do you have any idea what percentage of abortions are actually from rape?
I think it's 1%. 1% of abortions are from rape and incest. The other 99% are pure irresponsibility. And here's the thing. I don't think abortion was ever supposed to be birth control.
No.
And that's why these numbers are so on the rise. And that's why we see such an irresponsibility when it comes to our children. Everybody's just living a free sex. I can have all the sex that I want.
Do whatever I want.
I can do whatever I want, because all I've got to do is go in and get an abortion and get rid of the problem. And what they're not telling these women is that 30 years later, when you're sitting at the dining room table and all of the families coming over, you're going to know whether or not a seat's missing. You never forget that baby, and you never forget that experience. And then there's also a spiritual component to it as well, because we hear people talk about portals all the time.
Yeah.
The womb is a life portal. The womb is a circle. It's a portal. It's the portal of life. And so what happens is, when these women, every person is made of a mind, body, and soul. I think that's something that we would agree. Every person has a mind, body, and soul. So when the abortion takes place, the murder takes place in the womb. And when the murder takes place in the womb, okay, there's a spiritual component that we are not addressing. So that baby was terminated inside of that portal, okay? Death residue is still there. We haven't prayed. We haven't, done any type of spiritual cleansing. And then here comes that sibling. We've experienced trauma in my family before, and we've lost some people. And even in the house that we had, a family home, I would never step foot in that home again, right? I can't imagine being in that home where one of my family members was murdered. Can you imagine a brand new life being created in the womb that their sibling was murdered in? And I think that all of this plays a part into where we are right now today. Why there's so much hate, why there's so much dysfunction. We basically have lost the value of life. And if we aren't valuing the most innocent of life, go get an eagle's egg, right? Go get an eagle's egg, okay? Touch it, kill it, whatever. You're going to jail. But a baby, the safest place for a baby is supposed to be in a womb. And in America, it has now become the most dangerous place. And what I've learned is that, unfortunately, a dog's life is more valuable than a human's. And I was telling some of my friends last night what my next project is going to be, right? So we're gonna get us a Winnebago, and we're gonna wrap it with Fur Choice Clinic, okay?
Fur Choice?
Fur Choice Clinic. And I'm gonna pull up and I'm gonna park right next to Planned Parenthood, and we're gonna offer free abortions for dogs. I guarantee you, we're probably only gonna be out there for about 2 hours before they come shut us out. I said I was gonna, and listen, in the front of the line, I was gonna have all of the little black dogs, right? Free abortions for all the black dogs, right? Don't laugh, but God is just giving me this insight to just help people understand.
I want to be there
when you look
do
at
that.
You've got to document it.
I want to be there.
They're gonna shut us down, right?
Yeah, they're gonna shut you down.
But an abortion clinic right next door that's killing babies, we're not going to shut them down.
Well, I think one of the most powerful things I heard at your event was when people talk about pro-choice, why do they make it this binary choice between abortion and non-abortion, right? Abortion and life, however you want to phrase it. And I've seen this happen over and over again. People are given these binary choices, like you must choose open borders and illegal immigration, or you choose racism.
Right.
Those are your only two options.
Right.
And we both know that's a lie.
Right. So true.
Why should you have to choose national security versus humanity? Why can't you have both?
Right.
Of course you can have both. National security isn't defined in terms of humanity anyway.
Right.
Our nation's security isn't defined by the number of children and families coming over the border.
Right.
It's defined by the nation states and terrorist organizations who are using those people as a weapon system.
Right.
Right. That, and using that open border to bring in, whatever happens, dirty nuclear weapons. I mean, most violent people, whatever you want.
Right.
Whatever you want, that when you have an open border, you leave your door open at night. Anybody who wants to can walk in, right? It's the same concept. So over and over again, we're given those choices, but you are giving people a choice.
Yes. Because choosing to keep the baby is also a choice.
Right. And nobody talks about that.
Nobody talks about the choice to keep the baby. And we talk about wording again. Like, I've had people tell me that I'm anti-abortion. I'm like, anti is such a dirty word. I said, okay, if I'm anti-abortion, are you anti-life? You're pro-choice, right? And I'm pro-life. But if I'm pro-life, why can't you be pro-death? Because that's the choice that you're choosing.
Yeah.
You're choosing death over life. They'll never let you label them as pro-death, which is the actual opposite of life. They've got to dress it up and they've got to make it all pretty. Pro-choice.
You know something crazy to me? A lot of articles have been written about me. I've been attacked for being, the sane, wonderful journalist who was one of the best in the world. And then the moment, that I didn't take a knee and follow the narrative, then I was the right-wing extremist. Yeah. And the irony is that one of the most important moments in my career that brought me from CBS and 60 Minutes, and I worked at ABC, NBC, I worked, all over all my career. And I was one day, I went to the Capitol. I had a meeting at the Capitol in DC. And I was on my way out of the building, and the security was like madness because there was a protest, and it was all these pro-life people. And I'm trying to get out, but they're all trying to get in. And so I got stuck in the crowd, and, I started to talk to people. And I said I was a journalist, and then they started to give me a hard time. And they were like, why do you people hate us? And I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And then I started to have a real conversation, and they said, you never tell our story. Mm-hmm. The only time you report on us is when there's an abortion clinic that's blown up or something like that, and you make us all seem crazy. And I was a little defensive, because I'd never dealt with that. I grew up on the other side of the world. I spent most of my career in the desert, right, and just trying to stay alive on a battlefield. But now I was living in the United States. I just had my first baby. And I'm like, And it bothered me, Angela. And it stayed with me. And I think God just works in such mysterious ways, because that was the beginning of me learning to look at it from that perspective. And I realized, wow, actually it's true. They're actually right. We don't ever do stories about anyone who's pro-life or against abortion, that it doesn't paint them as a crazy person. Right. And that was a door opening, right? Yes. To get me. That's how I started to see the bias that I couldn't identify, because I was raised in that world where it was just assumed that Roe v. Wade was, like God's law. Yep. And it's not God's law.
And they tell you, they use so many things against us. Like they tell you, you're against women's rights. And you know what I tell them? Well, you have to be born in order to become a woman. Okay? These things are common sense, right? Simple common sense. And I think that, like you said, not showing the other side, because the media has been very biased and one directional. Like, I'm not the enemy because I save babies. Are you serious? Like, how am I a white supremacist for saving black babies? The way that they frame things and make you think that, want to make your community think that you're against them when you're actually fighting for them. Here I am in your community with a life resource, wanting to eradicate the black maternal health crisis, wanting more babies born, not terminated, but you somehow have all of these articles about me written out on the line that I'm anti-abortion. There's nothing out there about the work that I do. It's all about being against women, anti-women, anti-women's rights.
It's so crazy. I mean, the last thing you are is against women's rights. It's not even a fragment of truth in that.
Right. And they make us believe that they have to give us reproductive rights. The wording. I got pregnant 5 times. I never needed permission. Right? I don't need rights to reproduce. I was born with the right to reproduce. I do need a right to stop my reproduction, though. I do need a right to terminate what I reproduce. But I don't need a right to reproduce. So we have all of these women that believe they're fighting for reproductive rights, and you are only fighting to stop your reproduction. And my biggest issue here is I was over it after the last presidential election between Bobby and Trump and Kamala. First of all, I love Bobby and Trump, and they had me stuck in the middle of their BS, but they finally came together, so I love them for that.
Thank goodness, because you're very close to RFK Jr.
and Trump, and I love them both. They're my 2 favorite white men in the whole wide world. I'll tell anybody, right? I love them, and I'm like, you guys are gonna have to figure this out, like, because I'm like, they're like, you can't campaign for Kennedy. How are you gonna campaign for Kennedy? He's running against Trump. You can't support them both. And I'm like, yes, I can. I'm like, let God just do this. Like, just let God work. You understand where I'm coming from? And
yeah.
It was just, they finally came together, and I'm just
I knew they were going to come together. 2 years before,
my
husband said to me, they're going to run together.
Well, I knew it, because I was like, for me, I thought it was going to be Michelle Obama, and I know my community.
I thought so too.
And I'm like, if Michelle Obama runs, we're going to need a Trump-Kennedy ticket, right, to whoop her. So I had already had this plan. Right, I didn't know it was going to be Kamala. But what kind of put me over the edge with that election, outside of being stuck in the middle of my 2 favorite white men, was that Kamala was running an entire campaign on abortion. Her entire campaign was reproductive rights. And I watched her, and she did an entire HBCU tour just on reproductive rights. She didn't go to Yale. She didn't go to Dartmouth, because remember, she's married white. She loves her white husband, and she loves her half-white stepchild. But when you come to the black community, and when you go to historically black colleges and campuses, universities, your message is abortion. And what I'm saying is, I have a daughter that's in college.
Wow.
And I've told my baby, if you get pregnant, right, with my grandchild, with my bloodline, you don't have to abort. Bring the baby home. I'll take care of the baby till you get here. Like, we've got a family that would be very supportive. Abortion, it shouldn't even be an option. But you have me as mama saying, look, we got you. And then you got Kamala Harris and her whole team rolling up in HBCU. They got Meg Thee Stallion, everybody on stage twerking for abortion. You want my daughter to believe that she has the right to abort my grandchild? Like, that's not the message that I want my daughter to receive. And out of everything we could be doing to encourage our young women, we could be teaching them how to be great, how to be doctors, how to be lawyers, how to be wonderful, beautiful mothers, how to raise their children.
How to survive through adversity, life skills, how to get back up on your feet. Because every one of us will be brought to our knees, every single one of us, over and over again in your life. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter what you believe. It will happen. Yes. But we teach our children now. Our society teaches them to stop, stay on your knees, and never get up again. Be a victim your whole life.
I hate it.
I hate it too.
And growing up, like just being someone who grew up in the Black community, thinking about Black History Month, because there's been all of this talk about DUI and a lot of things President Trump has been doing. For me, learning Black history is
You said DUI, you mean DEI.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's a great
me,
flip.
I know, right? For me, learning about Black history has in some part been rewarding, but then in other parts has also been very traumatizing. Imagine being a child growing up in school and every Black History Month they're teaching you about how Black people were nothing, how they were slaves, how they were beaten, how they were murdered, how they were hung from trees, how they were tried. Of course I'm going to grow up with not only believing that I'm less than,
Yes.
because this is what you've taught me
Yes.
all my life throughout school, okay? I'm also going to grow up with some resentment towards white people. Even I haven't been offended by white people. Like the racism that people are talking about, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I myself, I haven't experienced that, okay? And for me to believe that all white people are racist, that all white people are hateful, we have to understand that something is broken in our education system. And I don't want to constantly remind our children of trauma. My daughter didn't get to the Harvard, she didn't win the Harvard International Debate Championship by me teaching her that the white man was better than her.
Or by getting, points on the board for being Black and female.
None of that.
Oh wait, let's give you a head start. No, she didn't need it.
She didn't need it. It was because her mother believed in her. Her mother told her every single day that she can be the best that she can be. Her mother did everything she could to make sure that she had access to a quality education. It was never about the color of skin. It was about what she had on the inside of her.
And that's what Trump means when he says we're going back to a system of merit.
That's what Martin Luther King Jr. said. He said, one day I have a dream that my 4 little children will be judged on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And now all of these Black Lives Matter movement and all of these organizations that rise up, they want us to be focused on the color of skin. And I'm sorry, just because you're Black does not mean you have my best interests. Because you could be a Black woman like Kamala Harris who loves white people. We know that because she sleeps with a white man every single night. But you'll tell me that I'm supposed to hate white people. And you'll tell me that I should abort my children while you're raising your husband's white children, but I got to abort my Black baby. I am so sick of them, Lara. And it's just the overall propaganda. And I'm at this point now where after this experience with Bobby and RFK, and that was kind of tough in the beginning for me, and it was tough for me
because you're very loyal.
I'm very loyal. I did want to work on President Trump campaign. I was told that I would work on President Trump campaign. For some reason, it didn't come to pass, and that's okay because Trump had done so much for me, and I believe that if I talked to President Trump myself personally, there's no question that he would have put me on his campaign. But reality is that God knew exactly what he was doing. And so when Bobby came with the opportunity,
he needed you more.
Bobby needed me, but not only did Bobby need me, the community needed us together, because a lot of people in my community weren't sold on Trump. They liked some of the things, but the propaganda was still too great with them, with the MAGA and everybody's supposed to be racist. Bobby was a safe place because he was in the middle. You know what I'm saying? He was Democrat. He came over here, but the Kennedy family, when you think about them, all that they've done when it comes to the fight for civil rights, Bobby has a long history of what he's done for our Black community. So Bobby was a safe place where I could transition them from Kamala and Joe Biden. They weren't ready for Trump, but they said, okay, we'll take Bobby. And what Bobby gave us was people over party. That's what Bobby gave us. Bobby showed us this party stuff doesn't mean anything. We all want to be healthy. Make America healthy again. We need to be healthy. And that was the one thing that we could come together on. And for me, it was so rewarding to just see that we can finally sit down at the table again, me and my family, and not have to argue about politics or Trump or, listen, like I'm still Angie. Like I love my family. I love my community. I don't want to vote Democrat, but that doesn't mean that I'm against you. Bobby put me back in a place where the people that I fight for and I advocate for, because all I know is what I know, right? If you talk about experts, what's your field or whatever, like I'm not an expert on the white family, okay? I'm not. I am an expert on the dysfunction of the black family. I'm an expert on becoming a victor from victim, okay? I'm an expert on going from prison all the way to the palace. I can only speak on what it is that I know. What I have experience in, and I knew that I would be able to transition the majority of my community from Kamala and Joe Biden over to RFK. And when RFK decided to join forces with Trump, because I used to talk to Bobby all the time and say, Bobby, would you please? Because Bobby, he wasn't feeling Trump for a minute. And I don't know if guys know their history, but you know, Bobby sued Trump like 3 times and won. And if you know Trump's a very arrogant guy. I love my Trump. He's very arrogant. And Bobby is too. So I didn't know how it was gonna work. But I say, Bobby, I said, please, I said, we really need this. Is there any way you guys can figure out a way to work together? Absolutely not. I will not work with Trump. I said, Bobby, please. And then it just got to a point where we kind of knew that we weren't gonna beat Trump. And I don't think we really wanted to beat Trump. I think we kind of just wanted to bring everybody together and get everybody on the same page.
We had to take back the middle ground.
We had to take back the middle ground.
They stole it from
Bobby was so fair. Bobby called Kamala and he called Trump. He said, I'm willing to work with both of you. He said, we got to stop fighting. Let's bring this country together. And Kamala basically told Bobby and our campaign to fuck off. And Trump said, hey, my door is open. Come in and have a conversation with me. And I think I cried like a baby. I cried because for me, everybody else, some people on the campaign were pissed because, you know, our campaign was one of independents. We were Democrats. We were Republicans. Like, we had the craziest campaign. And there were a lot of people that was pissed off that Bobby decided to join forces with Trump, but not me. It was like a kid on Christmas. Like, it was one of the happiest moments in my life because I had King, Trump, and Kennedy. I had King, who rescued me from prison. I had Trump, who had pardoned me, given me a second chance on life. And then I had Kennedy, who had positioned me. These were the 3 people that changed my life, and to be able, oh man, to sit in that audience when Bobby and Trump joined forces on that stage and introduced the Unity Party.
Unbelievable.
Man, that was, oh my freaking God. And to know that I wasn't the only one solely responsible, but to know that I played a part in it. And to see where we are now.
Angela, I was in the White Elephant, a bar on Main Street in a little town in Texas. Mm-hmm. And I watched that speech that RFK Jr. made, and I cried for the same reasons. He set us free. They set us free when they joined forces, because to live in this prison that they built for us, you know, of white supremacy and racism, where you can't speak out, you can't say, hey, you know, these BLM riots, they've been completely overtaken by political forces. You know, Antifa is there. They're paying black kids to go to the front of these riots, hoping that they get shot and hurt so that they can keep the riots going. And people turn around and say, you're a racist.
Yes.
And all my life, from the time I was born, I wept for injustice and racism. It broke my heart. It literally broke my heart. So, you know, you're not going to put me in this cage, but,
that's right.
And then people you know in your family, you know, they treat you differently and they look at you differently. And it never, you know, I never faltered. I never considered stepping off that path because I know what the truth is. Right. But it was painful in so many ways. And so when they came together like that, and you could see they had total information dominance in Trump's first term, and they could paint him. If you said Trump wasn't a white supremacist, that made you a white supremacist.
Yeah.
And And it was insanity.
Or if you were a black or MAGA Republican, you were a white supremacist. I'm like, I'm a white supremacist? Okay. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
And one of, for me, like, that's another reason why I started Auntie Angie's house, because of Black Lives Matter. I'm watching, because you have to remember, my understanding is different. So I understand the mindset of a Republican. I understand the mindset of a conservative. I don't care about color. It's about what we believe. It's about what we stand on. And then I'm over here, because this is my community. It's my family. Okay, these are people that I've grown up with. My ear is, I'm in the community every single day. All right, and I know that racism does exist, and I'm hearing them say, you know, that these people are racist. But then again, I'm like, wait a minute, like, my friends who are helping me save my babies, you guys aren't doing anything to help us. You look just like me. You say Black Lives Matter, but you only show up after that black life has been terminated. They're on the end of the fight. I'm on the front end, right? We show up before the life is terminated. We save the life. You guys show up after the life is already dead. There's only trauma. There's never any justice. Nothing. That whole Black Lives Matter movement, what did they get?
Nothing.
Joe Biden's entire presidency was Black Lives Matter. We had 13 black people shot in Buffalo, New York, in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. I've got an uncle who has a church 2 blocks over from that Tops grocery store. I've got family all in that community. 10 black elders shot dead in Buffalo, New York. And the only thing they did was went up there and told black people that we have to push for stricter gun laws. But when 8 Asians were murdered here in Atlanta, Georgia, okay, immediately Kamala Harris, everybody, they put it together, an anti-Asian, Asian hate crime bill to protect Asian life for the hate that they endured during COVID. I don't believe any race of people should be hated, but I'm just talking about how they play in our face.
How they politicize it.
And not only did they give them a anti-hate crime bill, but they gave them $50 million from the American Rescue Fund for the Asian community. And I'm not against Asians. I don't want anybody to think that I'm racist, but growing up in the black community, I've watched them own the restaurants. I watched them own the beauty supply stores. I watched them own the nail salons and drain money out of our communities. And they don't have a community give back day. Even in COVID, you couldn't even get a bottle of water from these people that have been in our community and have these businesses that have made every single dollar off of our community and then sent the money back home. They don't even put it back in the community. These people are constantly rewarded, and I'm not mad at them. But I need the black community to wake up and understand propaganda. The same people that claim they are for you aren't doing anything for you other than offering you abortion as a solution to your problem.
And prison.
I tell them all the time that the Democrats don't want to solve your problems. They want to abort your problems. If you really think about this, and it is so sick, even with our welfare system, and you and I talked about Department of Children and Family Services and some great work that we're getting ready to do with RFK in regards to exposing what's happening with our children. But when you think about it, these government facilities would rather pay $400 for an abortion than to pay $400 every month in welfare stamps for the next 18 years. Our society believes it's better to just terminate the life.
And now you have them actually having abortion parties on Instagram and elsewhere. Have you seen this?
Lara, listen. You talking about abortion parties. Let's talk about Kamala Harris at the DNC in Chicago, downtown Chicago, predominantly black. Y'all took an abortion Hot Wheels bus to the DNC. They are performing abortions on site, human sacrifice on site. I said, God, you better show up. And when you go back and you look at the video, every woman getting on and off that bus was black. They are celebrating terminating black life while saying Black Lives Matter. It is the most diabolical thing that I've ever seen in my life. I will never, ever subscribe to another party again. The only battle that I'm fighting right now is the good fight. There are two forces here, good or evil. You pick or choose. I'm on the side with the light and the good people, the people that want to save these children, the people that believe that there is a greater good. That's where I stand. And that party stuff doesn't mean anything to me anymore because people's hearts are changing every day. Last night at our event, you and I both heard my brother Jamel Holly, who's been a staunch Democrat his entire life, former mayor of New Jersey, get up on the stage and say that because of me, that he is now pro-life. That is the work that God is doing. Nobody that advocates for abortion has ever been aborted. This is how insane this is. Like, you're upset with me because I'm pro-life. Well, hell, at least I've lived life. At least I'm advocating for something that I've experienced. You're advocating for something that you've never even experienced. You don't know what it feels like to be aborted. And you're denying someone the right to life that you have been given. Anybody that is, if you've had the right to life, who are you to say that someone else doesn't deserve it?
Well, and also let's talk about the reality of abortion. Okay? Because this is another subject. And another woman that you recognized who worked at Planned Parenthood, Abby said something that was interesting because she said, I've watched other people die, but with abortion, we never watch the death. We never see the death. And, that stuck with me because what does that death look like?
It's really out of sight, out of mind. And that's why we're not as strong about abortion as we should be, because you don't see the baby because it's on the inside. But to Abby's point, Abby was called in. Part of her story is when she worked at their abortion clinic, the doctor that was performing the abortion had called her in because he needed her to monitor ultrasound. And so as he's sticking the suction tube in, trying to suck the baby out and abort the baby.
That was at 13 weeks.
The baby is running from the suction tube in the womb. And this is when Abby realized, I will never, ever be a part of this again.
And she'd worked at Planned Parenthood for 8 years at that point.
Yes.
So, this wasn't something new to her.
Yes, it was nothing, but this was her first time.
Actually seeing the death.
Seeing the death.
I don't understand,
and we don't
Angela.
See it.
I do not understand the doctor doing that. I do not understand. God help me.
And legally, because here's a reality. There is a woman here in Georgia I know who was just arrested because I think she gave herself a pill or something like that. The baby passed. She threw the baby in a dumpster, right? Charged her with infanticide. Now, here's the reality. I'm the mother. You say it's my choice, right?
Yeah.
I really don't have the right to terminate that life, do I? If I terminate the life as the mother, I'm going to jail. The only person that actually has the right to terminate the life is the abortionist, okay? The mother isn't even the murderer. The abortionist, by law, is able to terminate the life and walk away freely. Now, even the father, let's just say your camera guy, Keith, and I just had a wild romance and fell in love and I ended up pregnant, right? And something happens and Keith trips me and I fall down the steps and the baby dies. Keith is going to be charged with infanticide. And he is the creator of that life. The father is going to be charged with infanticide. He's going to jail. The mother's being charged with infanticide. He's going to jail. The abortionist, the one who actually, ends the life, terminates the life, is protected by law. And it's a double standard because it's like if a pregnant woman is driving a car and she's hit and the baby dies, it's an infanticide child. When do we want to recognize that we're killing the baby?
Well, it's a good question because I spoke to my children's pediatrician about this very question. And he's a tough, smart, accomplished man in Texas. Mm-hmm. And when he started to talk to me about the time, right? Mm-hmm. Because there are people now, there are states that allow full-term abortions.
Oh,
right?
My
like
God.
New York.
Oh, my God.
And I
oh, my God.
And he's, I don't remember the date that the time period that he gave me, but he started to tell me about what it was like to deal with this. And he started crying in front of my daughter.
Yes. And there's that argument about conception, or when it actually
What's the moment of
is
life?
a baby, or when do we
Where do you
recognize
go from
it?
an egg to a human or whatever it is?
I mean, once a life has been created, there's only one way to end it. Okay? So once you're pregnant, it doesn't matter your 1 day, your 2 day, your 3 days, that baby's alive. The only way to get rid of it is by an abortion. Dead things don't grow. So if it wasn't alive and if it wasn't a baby, you don't have to worry about your stomach growing and your stomach getting bigger and your stomach. And a lot of us don't understand lifespan development. It goes back to that question, is a tadpole a frog? Right? Mm-hmm. It's still a frog. It's in the development stages. So when we start to understand lifespan development, right? From being an embryo, right? To a fetus, to an infant, to a toddler, to a adolescent, to a teen, to an adult, right? It's lifespan. You're the same person from the moment that you're created. You're the same person inside of the womb that you are outside of the womb. You don't just magically become another person the moment your mother decides to give birth to you. You're the same person from the beginning of conception. So that question as to when it's a life the minute that it's conceived, because once that takes place, it's only one way to end it.
You know, I said this in my acceptance speech last night when you gave me the award. I said I was seduced by the pro-choice argument growing up, because I thought, I'm a woman and I want to work and I want to have a career, and there's things I want to do, and I don't think that any man or anyone else should have a right to tell you what to do with your body. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of young girls that think that.
Well,
but I realized, for me, I was wrong. And
we have to, and me too, and I've made mistakes. I'm not innocent. I bought the lie too. You're young, you're a single mom, you don't need any more children. You're going to take away from, the mouths of your other children. And I was feeling liberated by the whole my body, my choice. And I don't think we understand, what that ties to. But for one, the first revelation that God gave me is that it wasn't my body. Because I've given birth to 5 children and none of us have the same body. My mother, who is deceased right now, I'm very much alive. We don't have the same body. Because if it was my body, I would be the one being terminated during the abortion process. So it's not my body, because me and my mother don't have the same body. And then bringing back that spiritual component, right? Let's talk about this for a minute. We're Christian. When we do communion on the first, right? We're always giving our grape juice and we're giving our little bread cracker, and they always say, this do in remembrance of me, right? Because Jesus was what? The first human sacrifice, right?
This is my body. This is my blood.
That's why this argument of my body, my choice, is so strong, because there is a spiritual component to human sacrifice.
It's not your body that you're hurting or killing. It's the body of your child.
Because we got some women, you done had 10 my body, my choices, and you still alive. But those 10 people that you created aren't. Once we understand that this is spiritual, because see, God is life. Okay? What is it? If we talk about God, all seeing, all knowing, all aware, right? Life is just that. The opposite of life is death. What is death? Absolute nothing, right? When you're alive, when you're able to be conscious, right? To be aware of life, okay? All that God is, all that God is good. God is life. So this is a spiritual battle that we are in. And anybody that understands the Bible, you understand the battle of Armageddon and the battle between life and death. That's what has been happening on these last 2 elections. Like, it is in the highest form of our government. And some of us are just warriors and chosen for this time that we are in this battle. The enemy is anti-life through abortion, anti-life through agendas that target our children, that want to castrize them, chemically castrate them,
mutilate their bodies, destroy their lives.
And the relationships that are unnatural, that do not reproduce life. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't have life, what do we have?
Well, without reproduction, humanity dies. Unless you believe in machines and transhumanism and this whole thing that the mind is you keep that mind alive in a mechanical body and you're still alive. I don't know. It's insanity to me.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, because I think this is a very important point. You mentioned eugenics, but you went rushing by that. Just explain from your point of view what you've learned about eugenicism.
Well, these are people that wanted to get rid of the less desirables, people that they think weren't worthy of being a part of this society. And usually those are the poor, the ill, the underserved. There's a group
weeding out the weak genes.
Yes,
right?
Yes. They're a group of people who feel like they're elite when it comes to others, and they have targeted specific communities for genocide. And I don't think that this is a secret. Planned Parenthood.
It's not a secret.
Yeah.
But still, so many people don't know this history.
And it's baffling to me, because Planned Parenthood, by their own admittance, have said that Margaret Sanger was a racist and eugenist, and that they wanted to separate themselves from her. But
yes.
They didn't separate themselves from the act. And that's what our people don't understand. Like, you can tell me all day, right, that you don't like Margaret Sanger and you don't want to be a part of her name.
And you're embarrassed
but you're a part of her legacy. You're
and what she created.
And you're still continuing
her work.
The act.
And she didn't act alone, Margaret Sanger.
No, of course. There's no way she could.
Her partner, though, was Bill Gates' father.
Exactly. And we see... and
the same guy, by the way, pushing vaccines that kill people.
I was just getting ready to bring up RFK, pushing vaccines that kill people. And they're on tape saying that the black community deserves it first. Now, I don't know why the black community deserved the vaccine first.
Oh,
right?
Because of racism, because we've got to make up for the past where black communities were underserved by the medical establishment, but where, maternal mortality rates are higher among black women because they haven't been given access to medical services. So they use all of that. And some of it is true. Mm-hmm. Some of it is not. Some of it is distorted, right? And they use that, though, to say, so now we can justify, now we got to make that right. And we're going to make it right by giving you this poison first.
Right. And it's so insane to me.
But we're not going to admit it's poison.
And they don't have to. It's just history repeating itself. We've watched this time and time again. Medical apartheid is a real thing. I've said, if there is a depopulation agenda in America, we know the blacks are the first to go. If there is, let's just say, because they love to call us conspiracy theorists. So let's just say that if there is a depopulation agenda, we know which group of people that they want to get rid of first. And we don't have to dwell into racism. We can just talk about facts, because history continuously repeats itself, whether it's with the Tuskegee Airmen and what happened with the syphilis, right? Or if we talk about the experimentation that was taking place on black mothers, black slaves. I mean, this AIDS, okay? AIDS, to me, was almost the same thing as COVID. It may not have been, sexually transmitted, but it was something that started. And then after it started, for some reason, it started disproportionately impacting the black community. Like, why does everything disproportionately impact the black community? Even when it came to what was happening with COVID, how in the world did something that started in China travel all the way around the world, even hit Africa where you have the most black people? They had 1%, but get over here to America, and then all of a sudden it disproportionately impacts the black community. And Bobby and I talked about this a lot, and I'm asking him why.
Well, I'll tell you what, a doctor I knew very well told me in the first 2 weeks after COVID, he said to me, because I have a really close girlfriend and she's super neurotic and she has 2 gorgeous little boys, and she was freaking out about COVID. And I asked him for her, and he said, tell her to take vitamin D.
Oh, yes.
And he said the African American population in the United States is the most vitamin D deficient. And he said, unlike Africa, he said black people in Africa are outside all the time. They're in the sun. They're getting vitamin D. He said, but in the United States, for some reason, the vitamin D levels are drastically low.
Yes.
And he said, and they will be hit the hardest because of that. Yes. He said, forget the masks, vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. Simple information like that should be readily available, right, in our communities.
That they denied. And you talk about, Fauci and your friend RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is one of the reasons I got canceled from Fox. Because I lived through HIV in Africa. And it was like poltergeist sometimes. It was apocalyptic. You had in the country of Uganda and Malawi, you had just entire populations that died out. You had women who would give birth. And you know what happens after you give birth? Your immune system goes down. So they were HIV positive. So they wouldn't die of HIV. They would die of things like thrush, yeast infections, because their immune system went down and that infection took hold and there was no medication for that. Mm-hmm. So they would die slow, agonizing deaths where you couldn't even move your legs without it being this agony tearing through your body. They would use salt because there was no medicine, and salt would help sometimes, but, not for most of them. The death rates were unbelievable. Villages, the kids. And I stood in a graveyard in South Africa. Once I was filming for British television, and it was on a Sunday night. I heard go on the Sunday night because they would dig the graves for the babies that would die of HIV. And Angela, they were rows and rows and rows as far as the eye could see of these empty little graves. And you know what the women in South Africa did? Because it was politicized. And so you weren't allowed to talk about it. Thabo Mbeki was the president at that time. Mandela was out. And Mbeki famously said that, to treat AIDS, you just needed to drink milk or whatever. I think what he was really trying to say was that you need to strengthen your immune system. Mm-hmm. And it didn't come out that way. And, he was the laughing stock. But what the women did, because women were not allowed to say that their children had HIV, because where were they getting it from? They were getting it from the men who were sleeping around. And so what they did in the history of protest in South Africa, they took all those little plastic vials that they got the medicine in for the kids, and they made those into the headstones on the graves. So you would see all these new graves dug, and then all over the graveyard would be these little mounds covered in dirt and, everything, of little plastic bottles to say, my child died of HIV. And who was the person who approved AZT, which was supposed to be the panacea? Fauci. Right? This was going to treat everybody with HIV. Mm-hmm. And it was Dr. Fauci. And who did he experiment on?
Of course.
To get that drug.
Yeah.
But not just your community. Mm-hmm. The children that didn't get aborted.
Right.
The orphans. Black babies and toddlers and children who had no one to look after them. Yeah. And Hispanic kids, so they say black and brown, And this is exposed by NBC. Mm-hmm. But when I say on Fox News years later, when they ask me, hey, Fauci, says he's science. And if you criticize him, you're criticizing science. And I say, well, I don't know. A lot of people I talk to don't consider him science. They think of him more as Dr. Joseph Mengele, the doctor of death.
Yes.
And people get upset. Oh, we can call Trump Hitler, and we can say Trump supporters are Nazis, and we can use the whole Hitler thing all day long. But when you say it, when you're actually talking about one of the most prolific mass killers,
yes,
in human history. That's
Genocide.
Dr. Fauci.
That is Dr. Fauci. And guess what? RFK's on your ass, buddy. And I'm so glad I was a part of getting him in office so he can come after you for what you've done.
For mass murder.
For mass murder, for the genocide against people that do not look like you. And it goes back to hearing you talk about the rows and rows of the graves. over there of the babies that have passed away, it made me go back to what Abby said last night. Like, when these babies are aborted, right, there's no grave. We don't bury them. Like, there has to be something more sinister, right, behind abortion. And we'll probably get to that on your next show. Like, why is the government so keen on funding abortion versus funding pregnancy prevention, right? Because if we don't create the life, we don't have to end the life, right? But what I tell my community all the time is, you know, when you walk into that abortion clinic, you don't walk back out with the baby's remains. Like, if I have a miscarriage and I go to the hospital and I miscarry my baby, they'll give me the remains. We can go have a funeral. We can bury the baby. But when you go in the abortion clinic and you walk back out, you never walk out with the baby's remains. And there's an abortion clinic in the community that I grew up with, right on Moreland. And I don't ever smell dead babies in the dumpster, right? Like, what are they doing with those remains, right, of those children?
Selling
and then I
them,
start,
right?
Because I start thinking about when we were little and they showed us all of these movies and these cartoons about the fountain of youth.
Yeah.
Everybody's on this quest for the fountain of youth. They want to live forever. They want to stay beautiful forever. What is the fountain of blood? It couldn't be the blood of newborn babies. I would hate to think that was the fountain of youth, okay? But then I start hearing about all of these vampire facials where they take the blood and they rejuvenate it and then they put it back in his skin. And then I'm hearing about all of these new things now where you can go into a clinic with your child and you can take some of your child's plasma and you can inject it in yourself and it'll push you back like 10 years. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You know, this is starting to make sense. And when I see an entire Democrat Party vote against the Born Alive Act, the Born Alive Act states that if a baby is born off of a failed abortion attempt, that you would render baby aid and treat it as its own person. When I see that every Democrat who is funded by Planned Parenthood voted against the Born Alive Act, the same people trying to convince me that Black Lives Matter, when I see that they voted against the Born Alive Act, I knew that we were in trouble. Imagine how far along you have to be in your pregnancy for a baby to be born alive after a failed abortion attempt. How could you vote to terminate a full-term pregnancy?
How could you? That's murder. And you know what?
The murder that we don't see.
The murder that we don't see, and you're so right. They never give you that body because they're selling it. And we know because Planned Parenthood's being caught on camera. And what do? They punish the journalist that exposes it. You know, because we punish those who tell the truth and we reward those who do evil. That's true. The system that we've built.
Yeah. They don't want us to expose.
They don't want to acknowledge. And nobody says, when they say blood replacement therapy is the fountain of youth, and you look online, you do a simple search, you can see every publication will tell you that young blood is the secret to anti-aging. But nobody says, where do they get the blood? And how much blood? And does it help the younger the baby is, or the younger the blood is? Is it more powerful? They don't want to answer these questions, Angela.
No, and it's really sad, but I just want to say that I don't know why God chose me for this fight, but I'm so grateful to have a purpose. And I'm so grateful that God gives me the wisdom to help my community understand through my choice of words, through my actions. They are able to see that there is value in life and that this is a great injustice against humanity. And I know that God has us aligned for a reason, because when it comes to the abortion and the human trafficking and all of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, it's all tied together and we all have our lanes and it takes a village. And I'm just so grateful that God has aligned me with so many warriors in this fight, and we've just got to have each other's backs. And it's going to get tough over here, but we know that we're going to all see each other on the other side, and we're going to be rewarded for a job well done. And although we all come up under attack, my pages have always been censored. They constantly clip my page. I'm still censored to this day. Begged Elon Musk for my account back. Never got my account back. But
tell Trump.
Yeah.
I'm to tell Elon you want your account back.
Right? So I just feel as though what we're doing is rewarding, even though we come up under attack, even though it seems like we're constantly beat up, even though people looking on the outside may think that we aren't getting anywhere. We are. We're saving babies. We're saving children. We're sounding their alarm. We are not afraid. This is the return of the Avengers, baby. And God has put together Angela Stanton King, a Lara Logan, a RFK, and Elon Musk, a Trump, a Tulsi Gabbard, a Cash Patel. Listen, we are not going out without a fight. Until God calls us home, we are going to save as many as we can. And I am just so delighted to be on this journey with you, my friend, someone that has inspired me for years before you and I ever even met. Because that little girl that was violated at the age of 5 years old, who didn't have anybody to protect her, I was never shutting up again in life. Nobody was ever going to silence me or shut me up again in life. And I'm going to speak out for what I know is right. And I'm going to stand up against injustice. And I don't care how hard it gets. And I don't know what's going to happen in 2028 after Trump walks away. But I'm going to continue to do my assignment that God has given me, which is to expose Planned Parenthood for their blatant racism and genocide against my community.
They should be shut down.
They need to be shut down. And Trump is aware, and Bobby is aware, and they are actively working right now to completely and totally defund Planned Parenthood. And I think that was one of the arguments that I had when it came to Roe v. Wade. Like, the bottom line is, when it comes to tax dollars, right? If you ask any American citizen, where do you want your tax dollars to go? Do you want your tax dollars to go to the mother that decided to keep the baby and is struggling and need help? Or do you want your tax dollars to go to the termination of the life? Every person that I've asked wants their tax dollars to go to. Like, my thing is, why are we giving you money and you don't even, you getting rid of it? Like, you don't even want the responsibility. Okay. And we are rewarding women for terminating their pregnancy and then calling a man a deadbeat. So if the father doesn't want the baby, by law, he's forced to be responsible for the baby for 18 years. They make him pay child support. They'll put him in jail. They'll take his license, everything, if he doesn't want the baby. But if the mother doesn't want the baby, she gets to terminate the baby and get a pat on the back. And they call the father the deadbeat. But you the deadbeat, mama. Not the daddy. You deaded the beat. You stopped the heartbeat. You're the deadbeat, not the man, not the dad. So, I mean, at the same time, they want equal rights. Well, if a woman should be able to abort her baby when she doesn't want it,
then the man should be able to walk away when he doesn't want it.
A man should be able to abandon the baby when he doesn't want it. And then we can be able to see how ridiculous all of this really actually sounds. And we can say, wait a minute, like, let's restore the value of life. Let's honor these children. Let's make these women be responsible for their actions, right? Instead of just being free out here to just have promiscuous, irresponsible sex, get pregnant and say, hey, I just go kill it and keep on going like nothing has happened. Like, I don't care even if it's some type of limit. Like, some of these women are on their 5th, 6th, and 7th abortion.
And they don't even know how they're being used, because there's a dark side to this. There's a satanic ritual side to this. The satanic churches sued the Supreme Court for the right to carry out ritual abortions. I mean, there's
Moloch worship.
Yes.
And it's child sacrifice. And we don't look at it like that, because even when you were speaking earlier, like, we believe we're making a choice. I want my career. I want to be successful. Now is not the time. So what am I doing? I'm sacrificing this child for my career. I'm terminating this baby, your life. I'm sacrificing you for my career. It's child sacrifice, and we don't even know it. And it goes beyond child sacrifice, because It's what happens to the baby after. We don't even know that we're donating our children to science. Like, and my thing is, if in the Black community where all of these abortion clinics are, if you're convincing Black women that they need to abort because of poverty, because they can't afford the child, so I'm coming into your abortion clinic, you're winning all the way around abort, because 9 times out of 10 I'm paying you, right? I'm paying you to perform the abortion. After I pay you to perform the abortion, you also getting paid on the back end because you're selling the body parts after. But if you're telling me that I need to abort because I'm poor, and if I'm sacrificing this baby because I'm poor, then damn, give me the money from the sales of the body part, at least, so I can get me and my other children together and don't have to be a repetitive cycle of coming back into your abortion clinic. So Black women, you're aborting your children because of poverty, and then you're allowing these people to make all of this money off of your child's body parts. Like, and then the same people, they're not even for reparations or anything. And I know that's a whole nother conversation, but if you're telling Black women that they need to abort because they're poor, and you guys are making money off of the sale,
give them the money. And you know, you're reminding me of that video of that Canadian millionaire. I don't remember his name, but he was big with child trafficking, and he's got a bunch of women. Mm-hmm. Right. And they're at a restaurant, and he's talking to them about the fact that.
And their eggs and how much they're worth.
Yes. And especially because they're Black, because
melanin.
Because they age better.
Yes. And the melanin is worth more. That's why the majority of the abortion clinics are in the Black community. Ding. Turn the light on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it sounds so crazy that it makes you seem crazy. But they're the crazy ones because they're the ones actually doing it.
Doing it. Convincing you.
And hiding it.
And hiding it.
And then attacking you if you expose it.
Attack you if you expose it. And I mean, it's not a secret. And I'm so grateful that we're bringing this to a head. Like, even with RFK's visit over to Auntie Angie's house, like, that was the tip of the iceberg. RFK was pro-choice, and probably is to a certain extent when it comes to race. Man, that man sat there for about 2 hours holding our babies, sitting up there, tears in his eyes as well. But he understood, like, why are we killing these children? Because of money. And we make our own money. We print our own money. We telling me,
ourselves,
as an American woman, that my option is abortion, but you got billions of dollars to send to Ukraine and Palestine for gender ideology studies. You're opening the borders and telling all of these people this is the land of milk and honey. Like, why do our children have to be aborted for their children to live the American dream? Because when I abort my child, right, I've given them up and given their spot to someone else. Because everybody wants to live the American dream. Right? That's why they come here. And I talk to the Black community all the time. Like, if you guys are, when was America ever great for us? Okay, well, if America isn't great for you, why are you advocating for other people to come here and endure the same treatment? If we feel because we're Black, we are so mistreated, America is so horrible for the way that they treat, minorities, people of color, people that are poor. If America is so bad for you, why are you advocating for America to be bad for someone else?
Angela, we are out of time, but you know what? This is a beginning for us, and I want to tell you something that my mother used to say to me all the time. She said, I'm so proud of you.
Yes.
Because you're a woman of substance.
Yes, God.
And she said, and you're beautiful inside and out. Yeah. And that's you. You are a woman of substance, and you have a beauty and a light that radiates beyond the world. And you're also just like me when you said with the kids, just let them play, let them be. That's how I've always been as a mother. And I've always felt like a mother to all children in a way, not taking someone else's kids, but we're born to be mothers, and they're trying to take that away from us.
Yes.
Taking away our purpose and our reason for being, and trying to make it like you can remove a womb and put it in a man's body and put a baby in it, and that makes a woman. No, that's not that's not how it is.
No.
I'm sorry if you're confused and if you're lost and traumatized or whatever it is. I'm sorry for your pain and I'm praying for you, but you're not going to take away my entire purpose for being. I'm a mama and I'm a mama bear.
That's right.
And so are you.
That's right.
And I just, I thank God for you. I thank God for the work that you're doing. I thank God for all those women, men and women, who help and support you and lift you up in your work. Auntie's house, I stole the sign.
You did.
It's gonna be on the set of my show.
Thank you.
Forever.
Awesome.
Nobody's taking that away. That's going to be there forever. I want people to know, I mean, you're expanding. You had the whole issue with the fire burning down Angie's house and you rebuilt from nothing.
Yes.
Now you're building in Georgia.
Yes.
In another part of Georgia. And I know you have a vision to see Angie's houses all over the country.
Yes.
And we're going to have a link on the website to Auntie Angie's, and and we will put that out there, that information. I know people can find you on X.
Yes.
Under Angela Stanton King.
The Auntie Angie on X, and then on Instagram, I'm the Angie Stanton.
Yes. And those are the best two places to
Those
find you?
are the best two places. I'm always getting clipped. I'm on TikTok as well, but those are the best places. And I just want to say how grateful I am to have you as a friend, to have your support. I know all of our babies at Auntie Angie's house is grateful to have their new auntie, Lara Logan, on board. So when you talk about Mama Bear, you're now the auntie to 94 nieces and nephews, okay? And we keep up with all of our babies. We're doing our gala. We're going to be doing that each year. And then we'll also do a huge birthday party once a year where all of our babies will come and we'll celebrate their birthdays, because life is amazing. And I'm just glad to be here, and I thank God for the journey. It's honored to be chosen.
You humble me.
Thank you.
You do. You humble me. Your strength and your courage and your light, and you inspire me and you make me stronger. And I'm gonna do more.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do as much as I can.
Thank you so much.
And I love you.
I love you too. And hey, General Flynn, our friend. Listen, General Flynn is such a tough guy. Last night at the event, I looked at him and his security, boom, and they're both boohooing, crying. I said, we got the toughest dude in America sitting up here crying, and then the security that protects the toughest dude in America
is also crying.
But it just brung the humanity out. We had a wonderful event last night, and it's going to propel us. And I'm just so grateful for all of my friends, especially you. I love you.
So there you have it, okay? Auntie Angie's and the Auntie Angie, Angela Stanton King, and the incredible work that she's doing. This is the beginning of a bigger conversation. But please share this show. We need as many people as humanly possible to hear what Angela has to say. And I feel like God is guiding this show. We're bootstrapping it. We are really grateful to everybody who watches, who supports us, and shares, subscribe, do all of those things. Just don't let these voices be lost. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Going Rogue with Lara Logan.